Okay, so I'm going to begin by discussing the external analysis. We're going to be basing the part one general environmental analysis around the pestle model. So we'll begin by discussing the political legal segment. This industry often deals with antitrust accusations, which causes it to be closely monitored and to spend a lot on legal expenses. Governments like the European Union, the United States, and China are implementing laws and regulations such as the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and anti-corruption laws regarding competition practices. There is also a lot of money spent on lobbying. In 2020, there were 465 lobbyists reported, and 34,270,674 spent on lobbying. The more successful they are at it could help influence political and legal matters toward ones that are favorable for this industry. Moving along, we will be discussing the economic segment. COVID-19 has had a negative impact on the economy. According to the World Economic Forum, GDP fell at a 32.9% annualized rate, the deepest decline since records began back in 1947. Economic decline is causing consumers, businesses, and governments to spend less on technology. Various government policies and restrictions have changed, and firms have had to make modifications to its operations. This industry also works with complex tax rules and have a lot of tax liabilities. This industry deals with various trade tariffs, and their success depends on the political stability of the countries that they operate in. These factors could make operations and finances more challenging. Moving along, we'll be discussing the socio-cultural segment. It is vital for these multinational firms to keep up with cultural trends. This requires a lot of extensive research and changes in their positioning strategies. For example, there has been an increased use of mobile devices throughout the years. Microsoft has not done the best with adapting to smartphones like Apple has. This puts Microsoft at a competitive disadvantage. Next, we'll be talking about the environmental or ecological segment. In 2019, the Green New Deal resolution was enacted to promote and lead the world to environmental sustainability. This puts pressures on these big tech companies to reduce carbon emissions by transitioning to clean energy, to alter manufacturing processes, to reduce waste, and etc. Researchers at Columbia University's Earth Institute say that stronger federal laws in the United States could help reduce waste from the technology sector by mandating more recycling infrastructure and requiring producers, like tech companies, to take more active responsibility for the whole life cycle of their products. Next, we're going to be discussing the technological segment. Cyber attacks impact this industry, which damage its reputation and revenue. Unfortunately, cyber attacks are becoming harder to detect and thwart. This industry must protect their IP rights so that they can maintain their revenue and a sustainable competitive advantage. This is not an easy task, especially when most firms in this industry operate worldwide with various degrees of IP protection. There are also no harmonized patent laws, and the industry constantly faces legislative changes and regulatory actions. With the increasing digital age and artificial intelligence capabilities, the need for cloud computing and software are skyrocketing. This presents a huge opportunity for this industry. 50 billion devices will come online by 2030. There will be 175 zettabytes of data by 2025, and processing this data in real time will be an imperative for every organization. All right, so part two of the external analysis. revolves around Porter's 5 forces. So we'll be discussing the threat of new entrants and the industry's barriers to entry, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, intensity of rivalry among existing competitors, and the threat of substitutes. So, threat of new entrants. This industry comprises of both concentrated firms and large, diversified global corporations. Smaller firms have the advantage of having fewer product lines, enabling them to be more efficient at utilizing various resources. Large corporations have the advantage of having a bulky amount of R&D resources. Threat of new entrants is high because overall, the software industry and technology sector have low barriers to entry. This industry is extremely profitable. Firms are at risk of earning lower revenue and operating margins, but thankfully demand for this industry is growing. Still, existing firms will have to spend more money on innovation to keep a competitive advantage over others. So we'll be discussing all of the barriers to entry. So the economies of scale and scope. This industry is basically comprised of monopolies. Although considered a monopolistic competition industry structure, these firms need economies of scale and scope due to higher fixed costs and marginal costs. Where these big tech firms have already achieved such scales, such as bulk buying economies, manufacturing economies, R&D economies, financial economies, and marketing economies, new entrants would have a hard time quickly achieving economies of scale and scope, making production costs higher. Learning curve. The tech industry is very complex, having numerous differentiated business units. Technology trends are rapidly evolving, requiring substantial knowledge and innovation. It may be easy to acquire knowledge quickly, but it is hard to keep up with this pace. Learning takes a lot of time and experience, and it will be costly for new entrants to cram this knowledge. Whereas these big tech firms have been in business for many years and have accumulated a steep learning curve, outside firms entering this industry will have a hard time reaching such a level. So I combine these barriers to entry, product differentiation, switching costs, and difficulties in gaining access to distribution channels. Competitive differentiation can be challenging, although they can still achieve it in this industry. Differentiating by increasing customer value and creating loyal customers will create difficult barriers for new entrants. For example, Apple has customers who are loyal and attached to its Mac brand, so new entrants will struggle to attract these loyal customers. New entrants would need to spend a lot of money on marketing expenses, which decreases revenue. Network externalities are greater, with increased brand loyalty, and customers are less willing to switch to new products and services. So with the moderate switching cost, more new entrants will have to lower prices or create exceptionally better products or services. Newer firms would also have trouble getting retailers to sell their products due to risk of shelf space. Large capital requirements. Although Microsoft has been in business for 45 years, its outlay towards research and development has gradually risen with each financial year and rising revenues. R&D spending was $11.98 billion, $13.03 billion, and $14.72 billion during 2016, 2017, and 2018, respectively, accounting to 13% of its revenue each year. This industry requires billions toward R&D expenses due to the continuously evolving technological trends, not including any of its other capital expenses. This is one of the major deterrents for new entrants entering this industry. Moving along, we'll be discussing regulatory policies, tariffs, and trade restrictions. So the recent trade war in 2019 has cost these companies billions of dollars, which will ultimately be passed down to its consumers. This is not good news for new entrants who already struggle with capital resources. Maintaining and monitoring IP, patents, alliances, and licensees will also be costly. Reputation for retaliation. According to Vox, while the anti-competitive behavior cited vary from company to company, they are all linked by the allegation that the four giants abused their gatekeeper status in various internet industries to secure and grow their market power in these sectors and others. So firms in this industry have amassed so much market power. They'll collude with each other to try to keep competition at bay or from happening at all. Network externality. As reported by WindowsCentral.com in 2016, Microsoft says there are now 1.2 billion users worldwide that use some kind of Office product or service. There are now 60 million monthly active Office 365 commercial customers, and that it has seen 50,000 small business customers added to Office 365 each month. Products value increases proportionally to number of customers who use these products, so this alone discourages firms from entering this industry. Next, we'll be discussing the bargaining power of suppliers. Overall, this industry has a rather low threat of bargaining power of suppliers due to the average size and quantity of suppliers. They do have the ability to charge how they want, which in turn hurts their buyers' profits, causing them to have to price their products and services higher. Intensity of rivalry among existing competitors. According to ProjectDisco.org, tech remains a rapidly evolving market. This is good news. High growth leads to higher demand and price competition will decrease. The higher demand means that there won't be excess capacity. The tech industry seems to have a monopolistic competition industry structure. Many firms compete in this industry and they have differentiated products features, giving the ability to raise prices. There isn't a lack of product differentiation in this industry because firms are continuing to innovate due to fear of replacement by newer firms. This industry has high fixed costs and lower marginal costs, increasing the need to achieve economies of scale to be profitable. This industry also has a lot of sunk costs, such as R&D, increasing exit barriers. 13.6% R&D was spent as a percentage of sales for the software in the internet industry. Bargaining power of buyers. As we have discussed in class, Apple has set plans to produce its own processors. Firms are constantly threatening suppliers backward integration, trying to take the power away from its suppliers. These vertical integrators would become competitors of their used-to-be suppliers. Microsoft recently commented, "We develop most of our products and services internally through 4 primary engineering groups." Threat of substitutes. Substitutes from outside this industry are a threat to this industry if the prices are lower, quality is higher, or buyers' cost of switching to those substitutes are low. Fortunately, this industry has a low force of threat of substitutes. For example, consumers could choose manual mechanical processes, which may be cheaper, but would ultimately hurt performance, especially since the world is adopting more advanced technology. So overall, this industry faces little threat from threat of substitutes. The third part of the external analysis consists of the strategic group analysis. Most of the companies in this industry can be categorized into approximately 4 sectors: the programming services, the SaaS system services, and open source. So the programming services consist of Oracle, Microsoft, SDC Technologies, automatic data processing, and this is the largest sector. The SaaS, which is increasingly becoming popular due to trends toward cloud computing, consists of Microsoft, Salesforce, Adobe, SAP, and Oracle. The agility of the SaaS model and the ease of access and onboarding for many SaaS products is leading to both young and established companies exploring cloud-based software options. System services has grown rapidly throughout the years, consist of Microsoft, Apple, IBM, etc. Open source. Many firms need change done to their code bases in order to start an open source business unit, such as Adobe, Facebook, Google, IBM, Intel, Microsoft, Oracle. So as you can see, mobility barriers between these sectors are low for the biggest tech companies, but slightly higher for smaller and newer firms. Alright, so the next part will be discussed by Hannah Hunley.
This is Microsoft's internal analysis. This consists of the value chain analysis, the VRIO framework, and the financial ratios analysis. The first one is the value chain analysis. This consists of two types of activities, primary activities and support activities. First up, primary activities. Inbound logistics have to do with Microsoft suppliers. They tend to purchase high-quality materials from their suppliers for their products. Operations. Microsoft operates in 3 different segments. This is personal computing, intelligent cloud, and productivity and business processes. Outbound logistics are Microsoft distribution chains. These are typically Walmart, Best Buy, and Microsoft stores. Marketing and sales. Microsoft has a big focus on marketing and sales. In 2020 alone, they spent $1.6 billion in advertising. And in service, Microsoft has great customer service for before you purchase their product and after. Next up is support activities. General administration is Microsoft's infrastructure, who their organization is comprised of. The human resource management are the individuals responsible for hiring the best talent that they can find. Technology development, Microsoft has a big focus in this. It's vital to their industry, and they're good at it. Procurement also has to do with Microsoft suppliers. They purchase raw materials as input for their output. The VRIO analysis, I chose 6 capabilities of Microsoft for this. This was brand image / brand value, research and development, technology, network externalities, human resource, and product innovation. All of these were sources of competitive advantage except for research, development, and human resource management. These were sources of competitive parity. Next up is the financial ratios analysis. These are the liquidity ratios, profitability ratios, leverage ratios, market ratios, and activity ratios. The first is the gross profit margin. Microsoft seems to be doing better than other competitors in the industry. Theirs is higher, and they are making a higher profit from its sales in the industry. The next is return on assets. Microsoft is also doing this better than the industry average. They are good at allocating resources more efficiently than competitors. Next is return on equity. Microsoft has a good return on equity. It suggests that its investors are more likely to realize better returns, and it seems to be better than most of the industry average. The current ratio, Microsoft's is 2 times more than their liabilities. They have 2 times the amount of assets to pay off their liabilities. The asset turnover is not as effective as other competitors in the industry. They can turn over their assets only slightly quicker than Microsoft can. Inventory turnover. Microsoft's inventory turnover is much less than the industry average, and it seems like it has actually increased in the past 4 years. The debt to equity ratio is not so good compared to industry average. It tells us that Microsoft may be relying more on debt than equity to fund their operations. The interest coverage ratio, they have a higher average than the industry competitors, and it says that they are able to efficiently use operating profits to pay interest expenses. Lastly, we have dividend per share. Microsoft's is higher than most of the other competitors in the industry. And this one.
Hello. So I worked on Microsoft's corporate level strategy for the project, and Microsoft's mission was to empower every person and every organization on this planet to achieve more. And that leads me to infer a few things about their goals. I came up with 3 of them. The first one being provide technological opportunities to all people, whether that be a small business or a single individual or even a large-scale corporation. The second goal is to exceed expectations. This means that Microsoft continues to innovate and continue to do what nobody thinks that they can do, whether that be developing AI or advancing their devices such as the Surface. Their third one is to reach all companies on a global scale, and this comes in the empower every person and every organization on this planet. They intend to reach all types of people all across the globe with all different types of backgrounds, no matter where they are. For vertical integration, basically vertical integration is the decision to make, buy, or outsource up and down the value chain. Due to Microsoft owning an abundance of businesses, I'd say they're pretty vertically integrated. This is seen mainly with their production of their personal devices such as the PC or the Xbox. They've got all types of companies where basically they make the computer out of parts that they all own. So all the cameras, keyboards, and mice that you see in their computers come from wherever they were manufactured previously, and they put them all together in one place. And then once those are done, the computers come pre-installed with things like Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Office, and the search engine that they use on their computers is called Bing. For the horizontal scope, there's 3 categories basically that Microsoft operates in from the horizontal side of things. That'd be productivity and business processes, intelligent cloud, and more personal computing. For the productivity and business processes, which brings in 33.5% of the revenue, this includes things like Microsoft Office, OneDrive, LinkedIn, and Microsoft Dynamic Business Solutions. Those are just things that help businesses operate efficiently and productively. The next section is Intelligent Cloud, which brings in around 31.5% of revenue and includes things like Microsoft Azure, GitHub, and the Microsoft SQL Server. This is basically the cloud, which everybody talks about today. It replaces local hard drives and stores things basically in the internet. This is the big thing in the technology world nowadays is called the cloud, and everybody's looking to get their hands on more of the cloud. The final section, which is the highest grossing revenue section for Microsoft, is titled More Personal Computing, which includes things like their devices and products, including Xbox, and the PC, like the Surface, also includes some of their phones, which they've tried to make and potentially or pretty much failed on up to this point. In terms of their geographical scope, they pretty much operate globally all over the country. They have subsidiaries in over 120 countries. operation centers in Ireland, Puerto Rico, Singapore, and the U.S. This allows them to achieve economies of scale. For the analysis, I determined that they were a related linked diversification strategy. They pursue economies of scope, and their competencies can be leveraged. Basically, not all of their business comes from one section, but between the businesses, they're very linked in terms of the cloud and their business solutions and their devices. Because these their products are linked so well, they're able to use product bundling. So when all their computers come with Microsoft Edge and Bing and things like that, and then companies are more likely to pursue Microsoft products when their business solutions businesses work more properly and compatible with their Microsoft Surface and Microsoft computers and all that kind of stuff. Then they, in terms of the economies of scope, which basically means that because they have so many different types of products, they create synergy. So the idea that 1 + 1 is greater than 2. So the businesses work well together, and that's why I believe they're related linked, which also creates economies of scope. So operational economies of scope is when they're able to share resources and like art research and development. And then anti-competitive economies of scope is basically them finding businesses to steal business away from things like Google and Apple. So when they make their own search engines like Bing, they're trying to steal some business away from Google. Microsoft also benefits from a first mover advantage because they were one of the first few companies to invent the PC and get into the cloud and artificial intelligence. This means that they're way ahead of other companies that would be small companies. And so they have a greater revenue than those companies and are able to leverage their competencies into innovation and that kind of thing. Lastly, Microsoft was built up through acquisitions like LinkedIn, where they just bought the company and then started reaping the profits. But they also had some internal startups, such as Internet Explorer, where they just made their own internet browser and put it up and running on the World Wide Web and that kind of thing. So that's my analysis of the corporate level strategy. And here's Zach with the business level strategy.
So I'm going to talk about the analysis of the business level positioning strategy for the company of Microsoft. So the overall positioning of Microsoft's business level strategy, they chose to go with a differentiation strategy. And they have a wide range of businesses that they use it under. I mean, I'll talk about more of that on the next slide. But they're in many different markets and many different businesses that they own and operate. But their business level strategy stays consistent throughout all those businesses. And if you use a differentiation strategy, a company that uses it can achieve a competitive advantage if its economic value created is greater than that of its competitors. So that's what Microsoft is striving for, and I believe they're doing a pretty good job at it right now. Here are some of Microsoft's companies that they are currently operating in. And they have operating systems, server applications, business solution applications, desktop and server management tools, software tools, video games. With all these unique and efficient businesses that Microsoft develops and supports, it demonstrates how they operate on many different levels, and they still stay consistent with the differentiation strategy. Their main focus, for a differentiation strategy, is uniqueness and a broad target market. Microsoft has pretty unique products. Most of them are really unique, and you have to stand out against your competitors if you're going to use this kind of strategy. And you have to offer products that are just unlike any others. And now, if you want to use the differentiation strategy and you have a broad target market, you're going to attract more customers and you're going to achieve more revenue. That's your main goal is using the differentiation strategy. We'll move on to value drivers. Microsoft, here are some of their main value drivers: diverse products, unique features, research and development. The most common is the differentiation of products each year. They go through extensive research and development for new products and existing products to keep them, competitive in the market. They want to be that one-of-a-kind product, and they're going to keep it, try to gain that competitive advantage in their broad target market. Move on to the functional strategies. They have high quality products all over the world. Their outbound logistics are to reach a broad target market, and online marketing is a big thing that's up and coming, as well as Microsoft's outstanding service. We'll dive in a little deeper here. That Microsoft is determined to maintain high quality products all over the world. They do this by using the same materials they would for products in the United States as they would in any other location worldwide. In their outbound logistics, they're determined to reach as many customers as possible. I saw that 5 billion people have interacted with the internet, and so that's 5 billion people that Microsoft is trying to convince to use their products, buy their products. That's a huge target market, very broad. And now recently with the coronavirus going on, online marketing and online sales has been Microsoft's, almost their main source of income here in the, past 6 months since the coronavirus, and they're doing really well. Hasn't really even slowed them down that much. And then their outstanding service, Microsoft provides undeniably outstanding service to their customers that purchase any of their products. They try to ensure every product that leaves their manufacturing facility is upheld to the highest of their standards. And that is all for part 3 of the analysis of the business levels positioning strategy. Thank you.
All right, so this is our SWOT analysis of Microsoft. A SWOT analysis is basically when companies take a look at their strengths and weaknesses, which come from their internal operations, and the opportunities and threats, which come from the external environment. And then they put all those things together and take a look at some ideas that can help them either eliminate weaknesses or threats or capitalize on strengths and opportunities. For Microsoft strengths, we had the largely diversified portfolio, or their deep pockets, the first mover advantage, brand recognition and loyalty, high quality products and global reach, and strong R&D capabilities. For their weaknesses, they had the inability to manufacture a popular mobile phone, which is hurting them big time. Weak search engines like Bing, Internet Explorer, and Microsoft Edge that are having a hard time keeping up with the big ones like Google Chrome, Google, and Safari. For their opportunities, they can capitalize on the fact that businesses need new ways to run more efficiently and to compete in an ever-growing world of technology. The growing technology sector and the increased demand for AI is a big one for them that they could capitalize on, as well as cybersecurity, global warming, and the increased demand for mobile phones. For threats, cybersecurity is a threat, I believe, as well as an opportunity, and you'll see why. Apple and Google products are much preferred to Microsoft products at this moment in time. IP appropriation is a big thing, especially when licensing offshore to foreign countries. That basically means that companies will look to steal your technology and create their own company, aka a competitor. There's also a declining PC market, antitrust laws, which make it hard for acquisitions and mergers, and then also COVID-19's been a big deal. Some of my recommendations for Microsoft based off their SWOT analysis would be a strategic alliance with Apple. This would help with their inability to manufacture a smartphone because the Apple is quickly coming up with the dominant design for the market, and they've obviously hit it big with their iPhone and their MacBooks. So I think that if Microsoft was able to create an alliance with Apple, there's their smartphone for them, as well as the increased compatibility with Apple. They'll be able to put their apps like Microsoft Office, Bing, and Microsoft Edge on those iPhones, which would make them increasingly popular because the more people who are using their products will be using those as well and paying for subscriptions for Microsoft Office. So there's a big money generator for them right there. The next one I have is to capitalize on cybersecurity. This is a big deal. Everybody's looking to keep their information private in business. And so if Microsoft can use their deep pockets model to find a way to keep information private and prevent hackers from hacking into companies' information, then the companies will certainly be more likely to use the Microsoft product because it's a way to keep their information safe. Another way is to innovate and use their artificial intelligence to help solve global warming. Global warming is becoming a big deal today, and everybody's looking how to make the world a safer place and a place that humans will live on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So if they're able to find ways to decrease our output of harmful chemicals using their artificial intelligence, that'd be a big deal for the world today. And lastly, I believe that they should stop or slow down their production of PCs. They have one popular model. I use it myself, the Microsoft Surface. It's like a laptop as well as an iPad, and it's becoming very popular in the PC market. And I think that if Microsoft's able to perfect that design, then they will have less of an issue with the decline in the PC market, and they'll stop spending money on not so popular computers that they sell. And I think that that's a good way, or those are a few good ways for Microsoft to use their SWOT analysis to grow their company. And that's all we have for the presentation. Hope you enjoyed.